Today's episode is brought to you by Boiron, the world leader in homeopathic medicines. I'll be honest, I used to use all conventional medicines, your basic over-the-counter products, to treat just about everything. As I became a mom, I got more concerned about what I was putting in my and my family's bodies. And I started wishing that more of what I was using was derived from natural active ingredients. In other words, I was looking to become more mindful in my approach to mine and my family's wellness. Know better, do better, right? So I started exploring homeopathic medicines, and I really liked what I found. My first Boiron product was Anneke gel, a topical solution made from the Anneke montana plant. It relieves things like muscle aches, pain, and bruises, and works like a charm. I'll never forget the first time I put it on my 9-year-old son's gnarly bruise from falling off his scooter, and the discoloration was gone the next day. After that, I was in, and I've trusted Boiron ever since. Whether you're turning to their products for help with pain relief, support through cold and flu season, first aid skincare, stress and sleep, women's wellness, kids and baby, or any other category, rest assured that Boiron has got you covered. Boiron products are sold nationwide. Head on over to Boiron USA, that's BOIRON USA.com, to check out their full lineup of products. She races on her bike, up and down steep mountain trails, zigzagging with incredible accuracy along twisting terrain, the uneven ground crunching with the dirt exploding beneath her spinning wheels. And each time is an adrenaline rush, the bracing wind, the thrill of the speed, the challenge of the competition. Anneke Beerten was a young girl growing up in a small town in the Netherlands with a dream, who conquered the world of mountain bike racing. A 3-time world champion, an inspiration to many, and now a motivational racing coach herself. But one day, on a perfectly ordinary sunny day in California, she was driving home from practice when her car was T-boned. And Anneke's life changed forever. A traumatic brain injury, a long recovery, a fresh perspective, a new lease on life. Welcome to episode 2 in our 3-part miniseries brought to you by our friends at Boiron, the world's leading homeopathy brand. Today, we're chatting with mountain bike superstar Anneke Beerten, who has rocketed to fame through grit and determination and has had a long history of supporting her own health, wellness, and intense training regimen by using homeopathic solutions, and has long been an ambassador for Boiron herself. We'll hear details about her rise to fame, how she found the courage to rise to the highest levels of such a dangerous sport, and how one moment can change it all. When Anneke hit her ultimate pivot point, she came to find something brand new and unexpected, a new understanding around the power of gratitude and the importance of living in the present moment. Anneke's story, today on the Gratitudeology podcast.
Will you walk through the fire? Would you ride through the storm? Will you walk on a wire? Will you save me if I fall? Will you break through the madness? Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right here waiting till you find me again.
Anneke Beerten, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
By the way, my husband's literally getting on an airplane right now to go to Amsterdam. We're there 4 to 5 times a year.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
It's my favorite place in the world. It's a toss-up between Amsterdam and New York City.
I grew up in the Netherlands, the countryside. And for those of you that have been, you know that biking is in our culture. From a young age on, we start riding bikes. I rode my bike to school and then got a little BMX bike. I started riding when I was 3 and I did my first BMX race when I was 4 years old. I just loved the feeling of it. I think the freedom, doing something fast, made me fall in love with riding a bike. Till I grew a little older, I won some championships in BMX, like national championships in the Netherlands, but also when I was 14 years old, I won the world championships. At first, like biking is like an outlet. It's something fun, like I was just saying, the feeling that you get. But then you start racing and you start, for example, winning your first race. And it's like the best feeling ever. You're like, oh my God, I'm on top of the podium. I was faster than all these other girls. And you want to do it again, right? It's almost like a little bit like a drug of winning races. And then again and again. And then there is bigger events like your national championships, and then you kind of tick that box, and then like what's next, right? European championships or world championships. And I always looked up to that as a kid of other girls or riders that would win that championships, and I was like, one day I want to win that myself, you know. And really it took quite a bit of time for me to actually get to that point. And once I won that race, it was like the best feeling ever.
But anyone who's ever competed in any sport will tell you, the road to those wins are paved with pain and bruises. Personally, I'm a horseback rider. I won several national championships in my teens and 20s. And in that world, you basically aren't considered a rider until you have fallen off a few times. And I imagine bike riders have a similar experience. But when my 5-year-old falls off his bike, he screams bloody murder.
Yes, it happens because like any sports, like even if you would do horse riding, there's risk involved with it. So the same with biking. I've never broken a bone, and I've been very lucky with not having super severe injuries when it comes to my career. So I think it's a fine line, right, with going over that edge and putting yourself in certain risks that you don't really need to push yourself into. And I think I was always really good at finding that line and not going over it too much. I mean, sometimes you have to push yourself, right? You want to win those races, so you got to see how fast you can go. But yeah, lucky enough, I was never really injured badly.
Of course, even without serious injuries, a competitive athlete pushing themselves at the top of their sport means muscle pain, exhaustion, and all sorts of general fatigue, bumps, and bruises. In the US, we often immediately turn to over-the-counter meds or even something stronger. But it's more customary in Europe to consider more holistic alternatives first. This was Anneke's experience, and how she was introduced to the world of homeopathy by her mother.
There's such a difference with that, where I come from, the Netherlands, and also where I grew up versus like you said, like in the US. I started using Anneke from Boiron when I was really young. We always had it in the cabinet at home, and if I would fall, my mom would either use like the cream for bruising or calendula on my cuts and scrapes. It's very common to use those, like the remedies that my grandparents would use back in the day. It wasn't very common to use medication right away, like antibiotics or stuff like that.
So now you've kind of like accomplished so much in the BMX world, then you decide it's time for more. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I think after like ticking some boxes, I was looking for some new challenges, and then mountain biking came into my life, and it opened up a whole nother world. So the difference between BMX bikes is BMX bike is like your smaller bike, little wheels, and it's on a track that is designed. It's normally in one little area. And then mountain biking is something we do outside in the forest, a bigger bike, it has full suspension. So it opened up a whole new world to me. And I really started at the bottom and had to work my way up, because I'm from the Netherlands. Mountain biking you do in the mountains, and the Netherlands is as flat as a pancake. So it took me some time to get used to that, like gravity and different bikes and all that. I love the challenge of something new and making my way slowly to the top again. I did a lot of racing in Europe, and then I knew that if I wanted to keep progressing, I needed to find a place where I could train all winter long. So the winters in the Netherlands are fairly cold, really short days. And I had been to California a couple of times, and I was like, man, who doesn't want to live in California, right? I knew some friends, decided to, spend a couple of winters there, and then eventually decided to move to California. And it was a great decision because after that, I, progressed more and was able to tick a couple of more of those boxes off on my list of accomplishments.
I want to hear about arriving in California. What was it like?
The American dream, right? Especially if you come from Europe. It was a very big challenge, because you leave everything behind, family, parents. You basically start all over with a couple of suitcases, and you have to figure things out and start to find a routine in life. But it was fairly easy, that part, because the riding was so great in California, and having like amazing weather helped with all of that.
Paint me a picture.
Yeah, so my weeks were always really planned out by my coaches. So I would have a strength training coach, and then I would have like an endurance coach. So my schedule was set. And during the week, I would normally ride by myself because the hours I had to make on the bike for endurance were normally like a couple hours a day. Then I would go to the gym, weightlifting 3 times a week. And then the weekends, I would normally ride with friends. I would find a good group of friends that I had over there and join the ride with them. So that's kind of how it looked like when I was out there when it comes to training.
I just love the idea of Anneke being such a badass. The idea of her flying down a bumpy mountain trail on a thick, tired bike, going at breakneck speeds with her new California friends at her side. Well, she says she loved it right away. She also says that she was
not that great at it. It took me a while to get the hang of mountain biking, but I was really determined. I was like, hey, one step at a time, right? And I got better and better over the years. There's multiple disciplines when we talk about mountain biking. There's like different categories that we have. And I always focused on the gravity side, so on like the downhill, and we have something that's called dual slalom and four cross. And with my background in BMX, that fitted me really well. And I won the World Championships in 2011 for the first time in four cross. It took me a lot of years to get there, even to the point where I think some people started doubting if I would ever win it. So the World Championships is a one-day event. It's once a year. You have to like get your act together if you want to win that race. But I had never won it. And then finally in 2011, everything clicked. And it was such an amazing feeling because my parents came out. It was actually in Switzerland. They traveled out to Switzerland to finally cross the finish line and be the first one to cross that line. Was like such a big weight fell off my shoulder because it had taken me a long time to get there. That's the moment where you feel like, okay, this is it. This is why I did all this and had all the sacrifices for it.
I love the idea of essentially if at first you don't succeed, try again. I think so many people start something, and if they're just not good at it, they just get defeated. How do you stay in the mental mindset to be like, this year might not be my year, but it's coming. I just need to keep working?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most difficult parts of being an athlete, and not like giving up, but it's easier said than done, right? There's a lot more going on behind the scene than just me not giving up, right? I always worked with a sport therapist as well. And I think that last couple of years leading up to that was what actually helped me click, and making sure I was staying patient in the process of like getting to one day winning the world championships. Because like you can train as many hours as you can a week, you can lift as much as you want. But then if you don't have it all together in your head and you don't have that confidence, then it's almost not worthwhile putting all that energy and time into your training. So I think that really helped for me mentally, making sure that I didn't started doubting myself after the years of not winning it, but to keep going and to keep making sure like, hey, this is how I'm going to approach this weekend. And if I don't win or fail, I'm just still going to see the positives, find the positives out of it, and keep pushing forward until it clicks on that one day.
One of the most unexpected things I learned about in homeopathy in doing this mini-series is how homeopathic medicines can be used not only for physical ailments, but to bolster mental fortitude as well. For example, according to homeopathy expert and, spoiler alert, next week's guest, Joette Calabrese, she shared something with me during a recent conversation. She said that while many people turn to commercial synthetic drugs to adjust their mental state, there's actually homeopathic medicines that work just as well. For example, gelsemium 30C, of course, just one of the hundreds of single ingredient homeopathic medicines available from Boiron, is terrific for giving someone just the amount of confidence they need before an upcoming event. Joette, who has worked with countless people as a homeopathic practitioner, has used it for musicians and actors before their performances, kids before an exam, and even those who need extra fortitude to overcome angst before a dental procedure. I love this. As someone who's sober and doesn't want to rely on sedatives to calm me, learning about these options has been a huge eye-opener. And of course, for Anneke, it was all just par for the course. This rock star has long been a fan of all types of holistic medicines. And since she's long been a fan of homeopathic remedies in all shapes and forms, it was only natural that one day, at a cycling trade show, she'd find her way over to the booth hosted by, you guessed it, Boiron.
And I went to a trade show in the US. I saw this pop-up tent from Boiron. And I walked over to that tent and I was like, I love your products. And they're like, no way. And I just gotten off like an injury where I had a really bad bruised leg. And I showed the guy the photo and he was like, oh my God, that's insane. I was like, yeah, I've been using your product since, my mom introduced me to it. And that's how I got connected with them as well and started using their products more and more. And it's a very organic way that we connected. And it's an awesome way, right? Because I love their products, and homeopathy medicine is something that I think is so important nowadays, where we're so surrounded by other medication or stuff that is not actually really good for us. So yeah, I've been a big fan for a long time.
I really respect Anneke for this. As a longtime content creator myself, one of my pet peeves is that influencers who represent brands often get a bad rap. You've probably heard me say this before, because many don't believe that the products that we're posting about on social media are ones that we really love. I've shared about this on the pod a million times, but for me, at least, all I can talk about is for me as a content creator on Instagram, right? I'm at Jamie Hess. I started my career as at NYC FitFam. I have been a wellness influencer for almost a decade. For me, that couldn't be any further from the truth. I have such a problem with that kind of inferred understanding of influencers being phonies because I truly geek out on the brands that I rep. Brands like Boiron, which I genuinely use in my home every day. And sure, like I've said before, there are certainly people who push products that they don't really use, but that's on them. I can't say anything about that. But when I meet someone like Anneke, who walks the walk, just like me, I can't help but be impressed.
I think the one thing that I used a lot, but still use a lot too, are the leg cramp tablets, because I put so many hours in on the bike, especially when it's hot. I would always use that the night before the race and during the day, just to make sure I wouldn't feel like I was getting a lot of muscle tension. And that was always one of the things that really helped me.
I can only imagine those hours on the bike under the hot California sun, pushing, riding, striving to be the best. And she was. Anneke, you could say, had made it. Until one day, everything would come to a screeching halt.
It was the summer of 2020. I was in the top 3 of the overall ranking, so great start of the season. But I was driving home from practice that day. I went out training and I was crossing the intersection, and out of nowhere, I was crossing on a green light. I got hit by somebody, T-boned in the driver's side of my vehicle by somebody that ran a red light. The only thing that came out of the police report was that she was distracted by a device. So yeah, that person was distracted when she was driving. I definitely went into a shock, started crying, shaking, you can name it all. Everything was a mess in the car. My car did not flip, so I was really lucky with that. It almost did, but it came to a stop across the intersection. And it was a huge intersection. Luckily, I didn't hit anybody on the other side, so I was still able to press the brakes myself. Everything was just like in a fog, right? The other person's car was totaled as well, and the police were there really fast. I remember that. Police, fire department, they all came out, and it was chaotic. And I was definitely, like I said, in a shock and in a wooze. And I just remember the other person that hit me was on the phone, was just constantly on the phone. I kind of sat on the side, waited for my friend that I was able to call that lived, like, I was the last traffic light from home. I could almost throw a rock to my house. So my friends that lived next door immediately came down to help out. It was already really confusing because I remember the sheriff or the police came up to me and they started asking me questions. And the lady goes like, so are you going riding or are you coming home? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, your attire, because I was wearing my riding clothes still. And I was like, I had to think. I was like, coming home, right? I'm coming home, right? I remember now. So I was already a little bit didn't immediately remember what I was doing, but I was still aware enough to be able to answer questions.
Still, although she had barely visible injuries, things took a turn for the worse.
Fast forward, I go home, started getting a really bad headache. My speech was slurring, was off, especially because my native language is Dutch. English and Dutch started to get like all over the place. And then my headache and symptoms got more severe the days after. It started building up to the point where I got really dizzy, really nausea, lost a lot of like balance, sleep. And that was a life-changing accident for me because I sustained a brain injury and a whiplash. And the combination of the two made it for a fairly severe TBI injury, traumatic brain injury. And yeah, it flipped my life around. I went from doing so many things, like we just talked about, right? Riding was my life, traveling, to dead stop of not being able to do hardly anything anymore.
Anneke sought help from various specialists.
The first one I went to was also in California. This doctor was like really good and worked a lot with people that had strokes, also athletes that come in with concussions, but it was not the most fun place you go to. Every time I saw a video of myself that he would take, I almost did not recognize that girl in the video because I couldn't even balance. I couldn't even like pinpoint things on a board. And it was just very a hard reality to watch at. It's been really helpful because in California, there were so much facilities that you could go to and specialists in concussions that I was able to see to really make sure that I was like getting figured out what was wrong with me. Because that was the hardest part. Like, okay, you have a brain injury, but what does that mean? Because everybody that has like a concussion, almost everybody has different symptoms. And for me, my symptoms were like definitely like motion sickness. I couldn't really process what I was seeing. So I didn't drive for a while, didn't bike for a long time because my eyes were not really taking in what they saw. And especially when things were going faster. And if I was really pushing my vestibular system and my eyes, my eye would go into a spasm, especially my left eye. And that means it rolls away. Like I wouldn't notice that. The only way I would notice it, I would get very dizzy and nauseous and sometimes like faint. And that took a long time to figure that out. What was wrong with me? Yeah. Or what was wrong in my brain? What was not firing and what was firing? I think I got to the point of being at home and I was so sick and tired of sitting on the couch and not being able to do a lot because I have such a active lifestyle and just a person that I am. I'm fairly high energy. That was the hardest thing to me. And I'm like, this is just not me. Like I have to find a new me. And that might be a 2.0 version of myself. It doesn't have to be worse than I was. It could be a better person in a different way, right? I just have to shift my mindset, my goals. And I think that was really a moment of like, okay, we're going to try and do our best in finding new ways of finding motivation in the morning to get out of bed, right? Like, okay, today, this is just one thing that I'm going to do. And this is my goal to achieve that. And let's do it. And it also really helped. I started fostering dogs because I had a hard time almost like getting out of the house, and this was forcing me to go on a little walk with the dog and have almost some happiness around me, like waking up in the morning and having a dog right there, because at the time I didn't own a dog, but I love dogs, and I just started fostering for the local shelter, and that helped me a lot too. It was just like that flip that needed to change in the mind and the mindset of like, hey, get out of this shell. We can do better than this.
And right on cue, we're interrupted by the sudden and very welcome appearance of Anneka's dog, who starts licking her face. Oh my God, he's so cute.
This is our black lab, Fisher. And
Fisher.
It's so funny. Anytime I go on a Zoom call or a meeting, he knows like my attention goes somewhere else, and he starts like coming into the camera and starts like bugging me. It's like, hey, what are you doing? Can we like hang out? I'm sorry about that.
Please don't apologize. That's amazing. And look,
yeah.
Speaking of like the healing power of nature, there's nothing better than a dog kiss. I was hosting a retreat with a neuroscientist, and he told me that dogs kind of help with wellness in various ways. They can help us be calm. But he said, Jamie, do you know about the Schumann resonance? Have you ever heard this? So the Schumann resonance is the electromagnetic frequency of the earth. So it's like the earth's grounding energy. Dogs' brains resonate at the Schumann resonance. I think it's like 7.83 hertz. And so there's actually a metaphysical reason why we put dogs with PTSD patients or, combat veterans. Our brain starts to resonate in alignment with basically Mother Nature's heartbeat.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know that, but I can definitely kind of relate to that.
These are the types of things that people seeking alternatives to Western medicine pay attention to. Homeopathic medicines, the healing power of nature, fostering a black lab named Fisher. There are so many ways for us to slow down and find solutions in a more grounded approach. This all came into play as Anneke wrapped her mind around her new reality. With the severity of her traumatic brain injury, racing and competing was no longer an option.
A year after the accident, my doctors basically decided that I had to mentally retire from racing because of the risks involved of a second concussion. I was just not even close to the fitness and being able to do what I was doing before the accident. And I think they needed to make that call for me too, because I had a really hard time letting go of the thought of me never racing again, because I would come in the office and be like, okay, how much longer do you think before I can race again? Do you think I can race like in 2 months? And that was like constantly my question. And then with them saying like, hey, you're not going to be racing anymore, you have to medically retire, it was a little bit of it was a hard reality, right? I was like, wait, I'm not ready. Like I was still doing really good. Like, and you're telling me I can never race again. So that was hard. But I think after that, I was accepting it, and I was able to chill out because I needed to almost like take a step back and take time to recover. Because if I could look back at my recovery, I wish I could have told myself to chill out a little bit more, especially in the beginning. But you don't know, right? You just have this drive. You want to get better. And then I really started struggling with being in Orange County because it was so busy. The traffic was busy. Driving was still a little bit of a struggle. It was stressing me out. Medical bills were piling up, and living in Orange County was just too expensive.
It was around this time that Anneke came up with the plan for her next chapter, coaching others to help them realize their dreams of becoming champions. And she would do it in one of the most special places in America.
I had visited Bentonville before because I had coached here with some women camps that we did. So I always knew that I loved this place. And I was like, man, this place is just great. We have amazing trails. There's a lot of mountain biking. And I decided to sell my place in California and pack up and move to Bentonville. I knew something needed to change in my life to really flip that switch. And that was the change I needed. So I think this feels more like home to me, like growing up in the Netherlands, in the countryside. This is like a slower pace of life, small town vibes.
Bentonville in northwest Arkansas was just what the doctor ordered. Once a sleepy town that evolved into a thriving city, it's said to be one of the fastest growing in the country in the last decade. It also happens to be the home office of Walmart, after founder Sam Walton bought a store there in 1950 and christened it Walton's. This could also be the reason Bentonville is now a magnet for entrepreneurs. And of course, for Anneke, the one thing that made it perfect?
Then they have a really big mountain bike community here, so they have a lot of trails. So Bentonville is known by the Walton family. They live here and they love mountain biking, and they've put a lot of energy, time, and money into building trails here. So this is a really good place to coach as well. So I was already coaching a little bit prior to the accident, and I was like, what better way than to keep sharing the passion and love that I have for cycling with other people and help them get better on bikes. And it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or like a professional athlete. I do some stuff with USA Cycling. Like, I just love that I can pass on what I know, but also give them the feeling that I know how it feels to, put it together on a bicycle and ride a bike. Looking back, it is okay, because where I'm at right now, I'm very happy in life, and I'm stoked to be here in Bentonville and able to do what I do and being able to ride again, right? So I'm very happy and grateful for that.
Training and mentoring other young women and young riders. If you were imbuing a young woman coming up in the sport with one thing, what would you tell her?
I would tell her, be who you are and keep having fun. I think it is so hard nowadays for younger kids to be themselves with all the media that they see. And I always try to think of the younger girl I was, because, in the 80s when I grew up, I was different. I was a little bit more your tomboy, but my mom and dad just supported me with who I was, and I stayed who I was. And, it was a good thing because it got me to where I am today. So I think now we're so influenced by social media on what we think we need to be. And I don't think that's always a good thing. There's so many badass girls out here that just should be themselves and be badass tomboys and ride bikes or ride horses or whatever they want to do. And then the fun part is so important when you're younger and you love something that you do. We often see now too that parents start pushing their kids really early on at a younger age. And then the kids, when they get like 16 to 18, they kind of get burned out, right? Because they've been pushed so hard. And I always say, wait with that. I want you just to keep having fun. And then once you get to the elite years of racing and riding with whatever you do, if you still love it, then okay, that's where you start really, like pushing yourself and start working with coaches and trainers.
As you train and mentor other women and young riders, and I've heard that you share Boiron products at your bike clinics. So what are your recommendations to people in regards to utilizing homeopathy?
When I do my clinics, Boiron always gives me like really cute samples to hand out. Often what I immediately hear is like, I love this product. I use this all the time. So it's so nice to like connect with people even more on that, and also to hand them some samples so they can try it. And mountain biking is one of the best sports to do that. We always have like, not always, I hope not always, but we often have like scrapes and bruises, and it works. And that's the awesome part about it. Like, it really works.
So what's next for you?
I have a couple of things in the pipeline. I feel like I always have, but it's just me. My boyfriend sometimes laughs. He's just like, oh my God. But I just can't help it. So I'm going to keep coaching. Obviously, my coaching business here is growing really nicely. Or I'm actually working on it right now behind the scene with a gear line for mountain biking. So some apparel that we're going to be releasing next year, and also very tailored to women. So I've been in the industry for so long, and I feel like there's still some improvements that can be made. I've always wanted to do that, and I think there's no better time than right now, right?
How do you stay grounded in gratitude?
I think my mom and dad taught me that when I grew up, to be grateful and to treat everybody the way, you want to be treated. I think that always helps in just my daily life. Like, we're all the same. Nobody's better than me, and to support one another. The accident definitely put things into different perspective. I'm just so grateful that I'm able to ride and to do what I do. I still my weeks are still up and down. I still struggle with certain things. And when that happens now, I'm able to like take a step back and relax a little bit more than the person before had a hard time like dealing with that. I still struggle a little bit with like sharing the story sometimes or posting about it, but I'm getting better with that too because I know I can help other people, with brain injuries or concussions. And yeah, I think with doing that, I feel grateful for what I have in life right now.
Anneke, we're grateful for you and for sharing all that you've been through. Your courage and perseverance is so inspiring, and thank you for sharing your journey in healing through homeopathy, nature, and of course, our four-legged friends. If you want to follow Anneke's journey, she's on Instagram at Anneke Beerten. That's ANNEKEBEERTEN. We'd like to thank Boiron for bringing us together with this remarkable woman for episode 2 of their mini-series with the Gratitudeology podcast. Stay tuned next week when we wrap it up with one of our most fascinating episodes yet. We'll be joined by preeminent homeopathic practitioner Joette Calabrese, who will take us on a walk down memory lane through this very podcast. We'll listen back to snippets of past episodes, and we'll discuss how the different situations and emotions we encounter in our guests, emotions and situations that I guess you have probably dealt with too. Things like overwhelm, grief, even stage fright. Well, we will learn which homeopathic remedies could help in each situation. It's one of the most interesting and insightful lessons in self-care I've ever received, and I can't wait to bring it all to you too. We'll see you then. That's all for today. Remember, if you like what you heard, if it impacted you in any way, and if you think it's a message other people in your life might like to hear, I'd be so grateful if you'd give me 5 stars, leave a quick little comment. Those things really help. And share this podcast with your friends, either on social media or just word of mouth. I'm on a mission for us all to help each other focus on expanding our attention towards what's good in the world rather than focusing on what's bad, one person at a time. If we all did that, even to our own little sphere of influence, the world has the potential to be a much more radically awesome place. Stick with me, friends. I've got your back. We're in this together, and it's a great day to see the greatness in the day. See you next time. The Gratitudeology podcast is written, executive produced, and hosted by me, Jamie Hess. Sound design and studio production by Gotham Production Studios. Our theme song is Maze by Hills, sung by Nadia Ali. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Gratitudeology.
Will you walk through the fire? Would you ride through the storm? Will you walk on a wire? Will you save me if I fall? Will you break through the madness? Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right